Hey friends, Kim from stampingandperfection.com. I have a bag that I want to share with you today. This is a gift bag, and I'm creating the gift bag out of this TLC Designs Scalloped Frame set, or Scalloped Rectangle set. This is my current favorite die set right now. This hasn't left my desk in ages. I use this larger frame to cut two pieces that will be the front and the back of my bag, and I use the rest of that sheet of blue cardstock and I cut it into strips. I have one 1-inch strip and then three 1.5-inch strips. So I used the medium die to die cut that little eyelet pattern. The medium die doesn't actually cut out a frame, but if you use the two or the three of them together, you actually get a nice frame. That two double row of dots will add to the first row of like eyelet pattern around the outside and give you a really pretty frame. So it's like, this is a really fun die set, and you can see there are a bunch of extra pieces I haven't even gotten to yet. I've been using the frames so much. So I'm taking two pieces of the 1.5 by 8.5 strips, and I'm just scoring 1/4 inch on each side. So I just want 1/4 inch so that I can put some adhesive there and attach that to the bag and to the bottom. Then I'm going to score, I'm turning it lengthwise, and I'm scoring at 2.5. And you could score it at 1.5. I scored one at 1.5 and one at 2.5. So I just snipped where I scored at 2.5 from the edge to the score line. And that's going to be folded up and made into the bottom of the bag. So now I've got two of these, and I'm just going to put some double-sided adhesive. Since I scored 1/4 inch, I'm using 1/8 inch adhesive. This is the double-sided tape, and this is probably from scrapbook.com. I've been getting a lot of my adhesives there because they have good sales, and they also have been giving away a lot of this 1/8 inch tape with purchases. So I added adhesive to those flaps on both of those pieces, and now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the backing, and I'm going to put the bottom on the bag first. Now I want to do this in a way that those little scallop die cut pieces aren't covered up by the bottom piece. So when I do this, I'm kind of folding them up, and I want to make sure that I get this placed in the corner so that the side and the bottom are right above or right next to those little scallop holes. I love this. I think this is such a pretty die set. It makes such a pretty framed piece for your beautiful images that you're either die cutting or coloring in. We're spending a lot of time coloring in images nowadays, and I love that this die is so pretty. So I've got the bottom attached there, and I attached the two pieces together so it's nice and sturdy. And now I'm just doing the sides, and you can see I'm just running that piece, I'm folding that edge over and running it down along the side. So those little eyelet holes are really helping me just line that up and get it fairly straight, actually. So since I'm kind of like making this up as I go along with these pieces, I realized I wish I'd cut off the flaps on the top part that's going to stick above the bags. So now I'm doing that. I'm just cutting off those little flaps where it folded over because I don't need that. I'm going to leave the center part of it because that will help to make a handle for the bag. And this is going to actually be a nice little bag for my mother's birthday gift. Her birthday's in January. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side before I adhere it down, so that will make it easier. So I'm just cutting that 1/4 inch piece off to right below where the eyelets are. So now I'm just going to remove the adhesive on the top pieces there, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach this to the other scalloped rectangle that I cut out in the same way. I'm making sure that the scalloped holes are on the outside of that folded piece. so that it really serves as a very decorative edge to my bag all around. And it actually stands up. So, you know, it's like it's got little legs there with the scallop pieces on the bottom. So that is going to be too short for a handle. So I pulled out that 1-inch piece that I have. This is 1 by 8.5. And I'm going to use that for my handle. That's going to make a perfect little handle for the bag. If you didn't want this, you could trim those side pieces sticking up right down to the bag top. And you could add ribbon or elastic or whatever you wanted for your handles. So I'm just using, now this is a 1/4-inch tape, so I'm just going to use that to attach, and I just trim these down. Remember that I scored one at 1.5 and one at 2.5. Score them both the same. Either score them at 1.5 or score them at 2.5. So either one will work, so then they're both the same and you won't have to worry about cutting one down. So I put a little adhesive on the outside of those. So I'll have like double adhesive on this, and this handle will stick nicely. So I'm just I'm actually placing it right below where the eyelets start. And I'm going to actually put some ribbon over that. I was thinking that, you know, silk flowers might look pretty. And that die set comes with a few little like die cuts. You can see the birdhouse there. That might look pretty. I could have die cut that out and put that there as well. But I just did a little bit of ribbon. I have one roll of ribbon in my craft room that I got at the dollar store for $1. It's this white ribbon. It was the only little skinny ribbon they had. So now I'm going to trim down this centerpiece, and you need to know your trimmer. I know my trimmer. It's got a wire so I can see exactly where it's going to cut. And I'm lining up those holes so they line up with the plastic edge of the trimmer on the left. So I know exactly where to line it up as I turn each side, so my cuts are exactly the same. So you have to like practice with your trimmer so you know exactly where it cuts. Like if I line something up with a particular point of that plastic arm, I know exactly where it's cutting and how much of a border I'll have. And that is a piece that's going to be the front of my bag. So I want to use this is Dreamer the Dragon. And this little stamp set, it's less than $8. You get this cute little image, you get a couple of sentiments, and then you get some little background pieces. And you'll see me use the background pieces. So I'm just inking this up with my Catherine Pooler Midnight Black ink. And I did it 2 or 3 times. It's really cold in my craft room today. I'm in Florida and it's like super cold here today. And I have a little heater on, which is slowly heating up the room. But wow, it's cold. So it took like 3 tries. I don't know why. And I think this is just the sweetest little thing. Now I have a microfiber cloth and a little stamp cleaner to clean that off. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Altenew markers today, my Altenew artist markers. And one of the reasons that I love to use these is because they actually take the guesswork out of coloring. So I picked the set that I'm using the R437, the R603, the R601, and the R614 here. And this is the R437. It's my darkest color in this set. I like them because these markers come in sets of 12. So they have 3 sets of 4. So this set of 4 like pinkish purple markers are designed to layer together. So I just use the darkest color around the edges where I think the shadows are going to be on all of this little dragon's skin, inside the ears, around the eyelids, the underside of the nose, and then in the parts of like the arms and legs and the belly that I thought would be darker. Then I took the darkest color, which is R614, and went right over the top of the darker color and then made it a little wider. Now I'm taking the third color, which is R603, and I'm going over the second color And then I'm like extending the length and the width of each one of those colored lines. So I'm going in more toward the center there. And now I'm only trying to leave a little bit of highlight space in each area that I've colored, in the arms and legs, because I have one color left, and that's R601, and I'm just going to fill in the rest of that. I'm going to go over the edge of what I colored because that is what allows it to blend. And then I'm going to fill in the rest, and that's what gives it the highlight. Depending on how much white you leave will depend on how much highlight you actually have. So I left his little shirt empty. I thought I would use a contrasting color there. So I'm going to pull out a second set of Altenew's markers. They have, I think they have 5 sets altogether. And if you want to try out some alcohol markers, but the price of Copics scares you, these Altenew markers are a really nice alternative. And these are the ones I started with. I have never refilled these. These can be refilled, which is one of the things I like about them. But I've never had to refill them, and I've had them since Altenew came out with them. So I used these a set with some yellows, and I used Y612, Y205, and C001. So I only used 3 of the Ys. Now I'm going to take, in the first set that I started with, I love this blue-green set. This is B635, and I'm tracing along like the bottom of the hammock and the lines that the artist drew in, indicating where that blanket might be folded or that hammock might be folded. Now I'm taking the second color, which is B815, and I'm going right over the top of those lines and just extending them a little bit. The third color, I'm doing the same thing, and that is B802, and I am, actually that was B714, and now I'm using B802, and now I'm filling in all of that white space, and when I'm done, you'll see that it really looks like a folded blanket. Like, you know, leaving that darker without blending it out too much and leaving a lot of white space is the key to getting that dimension that you want. Okay, so now at some point I'm going to realize that I missed the right side of the hammock and the tail of the dragon, so I will have to go back in, and I'm just going to fill that in with a couple of colors because you can hardly see it. It's a tiny little space. So I'm, just filling that in a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead now that I have this all colored, and I'm going to cut this out. You can fussy cut this. It's pretty simple, but I'm throwing it into my Brother's Scan and Cut. I love the Brother's Scan and Cut. I always cut it with a little border. This is the 0.4 border around the edge, and it just does a beautiful job. I don't buy coordinating die sets anymore. I spend my money on die sets like the one I'm using that do the decorative things or the cover plates, and I haven't even been purchasing very many of those. I've been spending more money on stencils because stencils are more cost effective, and I can do a lot with stencils. So, and TLC Designs, by the way, that die set is $12, and you get 8 different dies in there. So there's a lot of things I can do with that die set. A lot of things I've already done in the last month with this die set. So I'm just placing this little dragon on that white piece that I die cut from the frame. And I'm placing the little moon in the stars. And I wanted to use that sentiment, but I don't quite have enough room. So I pulled out the sentiment stamp set from TLC Designs and pulled out the 2U. It's a Celebrate stamp set. That's what it's called. It's called Celebrations or Celebrate. And it's got this little sentiment that says 2U, which is kind of perfect. So I want to emboss these. So I'm using my Versamark here, and I'm going to emboss them in antique gold. And I bought these inexpensive little containers at the dollar store, and they are super hard to open. So I'm just kind of pouring a little bit of that antique gold on. This is my favorite gold. This is actually Altenew's antique gold. I just love this particular color of gold embossing powder. So I'm going to heat set that, and then I'm just going to color it in. And again, my room is super cold, so I'm going from the back and trying to warm up that paper a little bit and heat set. It heat sets fast. These are little images. So I'm just going to use the yellow for, I picked the darkest yellow, which is for me Y205. I colored in the moon and the stars. And then I decided I would color that little cloud in like a very light purple color. So I pulled out a really light purpley color. And then I'm taking Distress ink, and this is the only Distress ink I have here. This is the Speckled Egg ink, and I'm just adding a little bit of that. I'm trying to add it darker at the bottom and lighter to the top. So I work on this for a little while and just keep adding this in. And it's going really slowly, but that's okay because I'm taking my time. And I also don't have my craft mat underneath that I use for my mixed media, my Ranger mat. I have a Ranger mat and a Ken Oliver mat that I use. The Ranger mat's like a Teflon mat or something, but they are like, usually I have those underneath this. I should have put a piece of paper underneath it. So when I'm done doing this, I'm going to be very careful to wipe up my craft table so I do not transfer any of that ink from my mat or my fingers to my project, because you spend a lot of time on your projects, and I'm just trying to kind of avoid going over the stars in the cloud because I've already colored them in and I like the colors. So I've got that a little bit darker. It's very subtle. I'm just going to buff up the embossing there with my microfiber cloth. I'm going to add some of that 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive tape. I use this tape for everything now. Like it seemed like 3 or 4 times during December, scrapbook.com was giving away rolls of this stuff if you placed a little order, and you didn't have to place a big order. So I got a few rolls for free. I probably got 3 rolls for free actually, because I still had to pay shipping. So I needed to make it worth. Needed to make the sale and the freebie worth it. So I still got a sale and a freebie. All right, so I'm just adding a bunch of foam pieces to the back of this. I have a bunch of these foam dots left in my stash. And I've also got these nice little thin strips from Terrace, which I really like. I wish they sold them in larger packages, but you only use little pieces of them. You don't tend to use a bunch of them at a time. So that little package has lasted a pretty long time. But I just want to pop him up on some foam and give him some dimensions. I'm going to place him right where I had him. And look how cute he looks. Now I'm going to attach that panel to the front of my bag. And I'm going to be leaving all of those gorgeous scallop holes there open, so you can see them all around the border. And I've got a cute little gift bag here. I think this actually is super fun. At the end, I took a nice photo of it. I put some pretty blue tissue paper inside, and I will tuck a giant candy bar in, and maybe a gift card. I haven't decided what I'm going to give my mother for. She's not very good at using gift cards, so I don't really like to give her gift cards. I don't think she enjoys them. She likes a gift, so I will probably make her something to go in this bag, because she does like homemade gifts. She makes me homemade gifts at times. She's a quilter, so I get a lot of fabulous, placemats and table runners and quilts I just love. So we tend to make each other gifts a lot. So I'll probably make something I can tuck inside. Maybe a little mini album would be great. So, because it would fit in there. And those little, I tried the flowers, but I didn't like the way it looked. And that is going to complete my little project, which I will show you here in a minute as soon as I make room. So I've used the Celebrate Sentiment set. I've used the square rectangle garden set, or the scalloped rectangle garden set, and Dreamer the Dragon. And these are all from TLC Designs, To Live Creatively, and their goal is to bring you crafting products that are affordable, and these are very affordable. So that completes my project. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel while you're here, make sure you click the bell to get notifications every time I upload a video, and stop by my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great day.